Welcome to Top Job, guys. My name is Mwenesi, and as you know, on Top Job, we're all about going beyond the office, beyond the boardroom, and beyond the careers of the leaders and captains of industry that we interview on the show. We ask them a couple of questions afterwards about their personal lives, how they spend their downtime, how they socialize, and what they would have done differently in their younger years. On today's episode, I want us to look at some of these questions in detail and maybe get my own take on some of the answers that you need to achieve a good work-life balance as you're pursuing your path to success. So one of the first questions that we asked our leaders and captains of industry was, what would you have done differently with your 20-year-old self? Well, I can certainly tell you that my 20s were very colorful. In fact, if there was one thing that I could advise myself is ease up on the partying. I mean, I used to go hard in the 20s. I was a DJ in my past life, and I kind of got up to some things that were not very productive. I spent a lot of money instead of saving some of the money. So please, please save as much as possible. And yes, party, but keep it in moderation. And on that note, here's what some of our leaders had to say about what their 20-year-old selves would have done differently.
My 20-year-old self, I'd advise her to start saving money because I waited way too long, and to not worry too much, about whether it's all going to work out.
To take more risks.
Keep your feet on the ground, stick the path, but feel free to walk your path, even though it's different from everybody else's.
Okay. I would say be far more experimental with what you're doing in order to really find out where your passion might lie, because you could think you want to be a doctor, whereas you're probably maybe happier being a philosopher. So try as many things as you can, and that's what I would have done.
I would tell myself to be confident. I would tell myself to trust in God. I would tell myself the future is already set out. I just have to believe and step forward in confidence.
To always believe he's already ready to create the future he thinks possible.
So the next question that we asked our leaders was, what would you advise your 30-year-old self to achieve financial freedom faster? I like that question, and I remember when I turned 30, I'd already gotten a grasp of what my strengths and my weaknesses were and where I could leverage and position myself in terms of my career and my job description. So I started asking, for promotions, for a raise, and also looking for alternative sources of income. So any bit of money that I got, instead of just saving it, I would put it into different kinds of investments. I remember investing one time in a mini restaurant. I call it a restaurant, but it was actually a kibanda more than anything else. And from that point, I started looking for little small things that I could put my money in and see if that could grow as I was earning a salary and continuing on my career path. While I'm sure some of our leaders would not put their savings and money into investing in kibandas, here are some of the answers that they gave in what they would do to achieve financial freedom faster.
So what would I advise my 30-year-old self with regards to finance, especially in Kenya, in a Kenyan context? I think we're not brought up to have a good savings culture, so I would save a lot, and I would definitely buy a home.
I would have told my 30-year-old self, enjoy life more. Maybe you should have done your PhD sooner. Enjoy life more. Learn the art of balance. You can, probably have it all only if you have a good art of balance. Yeah, and that there is a place and a time for everything. Enjoy the flowers, enjoy the children,
And I would tell myself that I should not fear any shortcoming. I should not have the fears that people normally have. Oh, I have this dream, but I have no money. I believe that money is out there in the banks. All you need is a good dream, a good idea, and then a proposal to go knocking on the doors of those people who have the money.
To take more risks.
My 30-year-old self, I would advise to keep healthier because I think we think that we've got a long time before we need to start worrying about our health, our fitness, and the sooner you start, the better.
To invest sooner, invest smaller.
The next question that we asked was whether you would buy, rent, or build a house, or your home for that matter. If it was me, I'm very keen on flexibility and having cash flow. So I prefer to rent the home that I live in. If I was going to buy any kind of property, I would use that property for commercial purposes so that if I'm buying anything, if I'm sinking a significant amount of money into a real estate project, I want that project to actually make me money. So I would buy for purposes of commercial activity. The home that I live in, I would rent. Unless I'm like awash with cash and I'm not going to have my cash flow tied up and there's a lump sum that I can just put in and buy the house cash, I'd rather rent my home and have a home and have a property which I would buy for purposes of commercial. Building is also a great cost-effective option, but you have to have the time to do that, and if you're not in construction, sometimes it can burn you. Here's some of the answers that our guests gave when they were asked whether they would buy, rent, or build a home.
Buy. Buy or build. I mean, I think if you can avoid renting because you're just making somebody else wealthy, if you can build or you can buy your own. Building is fun because you get to obviously choose your style, but it's a headache. So if you find something that works for you and you can just pay for it off the top, then I'd do that.
Buy.
I would buy a house that's been built by a professional developer. The reason why I would buy a house built by a professional developer is because that's what they do. How are you going to know what you're going to put on your infrastructure? How are you going to know whether the quality is good? How are you going to have a backdrop if something goes wrong? How are you going to manage a build while you're having a job? That's why.
Build anytime.
Rent.
I would advise people to build their own houses. There's that feeling of contentment, self-fulfillment when you have your own house. And you can do anything in your own house, you can transform it the way you want. And I think that's the utmost for a human being to have their own house.
For the African context, this next question really got my juices going. Should you get a car or a home as your first purchase? For me, I'd actually think about getting a laptop first so that you can have something that can start to make you more productive and offer your services as you're thinking about what next to do. But besides a laptop, onto that question, I would prefer to have a car because mobility and flexibility in terms of transport for me is a much better thing to get your network up, to allow you to make your meetings and interviews on time rather than putting all your money in a home. However, a home is one of those things that appreciates. Land will always appreciate. So if you're money-minded and you don't mind not being able to network and move around quick enough, fine, getting a home is one of those things that you can do. Here are some of the answers that our guests gave on whether to get a car or a home as your first purchase.
I believe it's realistic to buy a car first because you have to move to the place where you are looking for money. Because a car costs less than a house. Then you start now using the car to go to places to look for money. You now start planning for a house.
Depends. If the car is making you money, buy the car. If the house is making you money, buy the house.
Most people buy a car first. Most young people buy a car before they build a house. Yeah. But build a house if you can. Invest in building a house. I still feel that was one of the best things we did by age 30 to build a home.
So what should you buy if you buy the first thing, land, a car or a house? I get this question a lot, and most of the millennials I speak to is a car because it's got more status. The answer is clearly a house because a house only goes up in value and that's around the world, so you cannot lose. A car goes down in value and you have to pay every month to service it. If you buy a house, you live for the car.
Wow, I don't know that many young people have the choice of buying a house, just the way we're structured with, banks and lending, and you need deposits and income. So I think a lot of young people will go for a car first, but when you're able to sort of do either, I would say go for the house. You can always Uber. Like, it's different these days. You can Uber where you want to go. You don't have to own a car.
A car.
This next question was very insightful. If you were to live one person's life for a day other than your own, whose life would you live? I have a couple of people who I would love to be in their shoes, but if I was to think of someone whose life I would like to live for a day, it would probably be a fictional character like James Bond. Not just because of the way he dresses and the different cities that he's able to travel, but there's something about that man of mystery, the intrigue, and all of that excitement that is around his life. And of course, having the great skills and the access to all of those cool gadgets is something that I really wouldn't mind. But obviously, this is real life. Let's listen to what some of our leaders had to say about whose life they would live for a day.
Michelle Obama, so I could be married to Barack.
Griffins.
It would have been the former Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs.
Oh, wow. I think I'd like to live my son's life for one day because the guy sees no limitations.
If I were to live that life for a day, I would live Oprah's. It's glamorous, self-fulfilling, and she mentors a lot of young people. That's what I would love to.
If I was to lead somebody else's life for just one day, it would probably be Tiger Woods on his high days of golf, before any of the controversy. Absolutely.
This next question really gave us a bit of flavor in terms of what our guests are like in their personal space. The question was, if your life was a song, what song would it be? Now, I've grown up in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid. And growing up, being a former DJ, I grew up, with a lot of hip-hop and rap influence, R&B, that sort of thing. And most recently, when I started getting into my own, one of the songs that really stuck with me and became like almost a soundtrack to my life was Big Things Poppin' by T.I. I mean, it's one of those motivational things. And that's the thing about hip-hop culture, is that self-belief, that confidence that you can do whatever you want and get up and go get it, have that mindset of achievement. It's something about hip-hop that I resonate with and really sits with me. Let's listen to what some of our guests had to say in terms of what songs best represented them.
Okay, that one I have to think. Oh, that is so funny. Oh my goodness, maybe the national anthem. I mean, what? Say that again. If my life was a song.
What song would it be? So maybe the title of the song.
Great is your faithfulness.
Love on Top.
What a wonderful name.
Grace is sufficient. I don't know if that's a song. That's the word.
It would be a song to glorify God. Praise be to Jesus. Praise be to God.
With my dad's one here. We went on a holiday recently, and I asked him to play a song, and it's a country western song called Walk Tall. And it's a brilliant song. I'd never heard it before, but I think that would be a song that would reflect, especially the interview.
That song, I love it. Oh, yeah. It's taken so long to come to me, but yeah, the chorus. Love the song. Yeah. So Avicii. Also, I love EDM. So yeah, that's for me the choice.
One of my all-time favorite books is by Malcolm Gladwell, and that's The Tipping Point. Here's some of what our leaders had to say in terms of what their favorite reads were and what gave them inspiration as far as literary was concerned.
The Bible.
How Remarkable Women Lead is one of the best books I've ever read. How Remarkable Women Lead.
David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell.
There are many. I'd say The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari comes to mind, but there are many.
So the all-time favorite book is actually, I read a lot about nature, and the book I'm reading right now, which is becoming my favorite, is called The Nature Fix. And it's a lovely book.
Why should I do
because it actually talks about the fact that as we grow, and millennials especially, we're losing touch with nature. We're not going out there enough. We're not walking in forests. We're not taking time to appreciate what the earth offers us. We're too busy on our smartphones and doing things like that we're distracted from the real beauty in the world. And it just gets worse and worse as generations come along. So the nature fix shows how if you do get a nature fix once in a while, it's psychologically one of the most healthiest things you can do for your mind.
Team of Rivals by about Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, all-time favorite. I read a lot, so it's hard to pick one. But I read a book called Tattoos on the Heart by a Jesuit priest called Gregory Boyle. It made me laugh and cry and sort of brought me closer to God. So I love it.
Every successful person needs a mentor or someone that they look up to in terms of modeling their life and aspiring to become that person or even better. In my own experience, my role models have been my parents, but if there's someone that I look up to outside of my family unit, it would probably be Trevor Noah. It's not because of just the success that he's achieved, but he's someone that I've had close contact with when I lived in Johannesburg for a long time, and I've seen his progression and success over the years. Here's some of what our leaders had to say in terms of who their role models were and who they looked up to.
My role model. So I look to the people closest to me as my role models, just because I have access to the real stuff that's going on. I mean, what their challenges are and what they're able to overcome, and so I would look to my friends, and each of them sort of inspires me in different ways. But someone who I think Kenyans don't celebrate enough because she's very shy about her achievements is my friend Carol Wainaina, who was the most senior HR person for the whole of the UN, working under Ban Ki-moon in New York, and has had like top level positions and had super impact, but she's very quiet about it, so yeah.
I have three. Abraham Lincoln for taking the big step for emancipation, Dr. Geoffrey William Griffin for obvious reasons, and Jesus Christ for being the ultimate politician.
I've been asked this before, and it's really weird to answer this question, and I hope he's not too embarrassed by the answer, but my role model has always been Irfan since I started Kariba Homes, because my journey in getting to where we are now has really been with him, and because he had more experience and was a very good patient guide, I consider him a role model as I grew this business.
My mom, for her resilience and just how she's managed, how she's brought us up. She's such a strong woman, and how she's just gone through so many challenges until today. She's still standing strong, still smiling, still so gorgeous. I don't know how she does it. So my mom.
I don't have role models. I get inspiration from everyone. Everyone has something to give. So people I meet, I get something from each person.
My mother.
My role model is Winnie Mandela. She was confident about herself. She did a lot for South Africans. Though it may not have ended very well with her, she still went on doing good. She still went on believing that all that she had started would be completed.
I know we think that it's all about work, grind, hustle, but you have to take some downtime. You have to decompress. You have to relax. And don't feel guilty even if, you're thinking, okay, should I take this leave time or should I achieve this deadline? Successful people find ways to decompress and relax and recharge their batteries. It's very important, because without that body, without that downtime, you're going to burn out and you're not going to be able to put your best foot forward as you're moving on the path to success. My personal ways of decompressing is prayer, very important, to switch off everything, meditate, and get that focus in a very quiet space. But other leaders had different ways of decompressing. Here's what they had to say.
Travel. I love travel. I love exercising. I love anything to do with nature, being out in the open and not seeing gadgets and furniture and stuff. Just all you're seeing is greenery and water bodies. That's my thing. That's why I said if I was to do anything else, I'd be in Haiti just bartending.
There are two ways. One is have a very good hobby that you enjoy doing. Fitness, both mental and physical, is very, very important. So having spiritual access either to your church or to whichever form of spirituality you pursue, and having an active life as much as you can. I think those two things are very important. And I would like to add one last thing. As we get a growing middle class in our country, what you eat is going to become more and more important, because we are going to be invaded by unhealthy food very, very quickly. And we need to bring up our children and ourselves to understand what healthy eating is all about.
I join my family. I like getting together with my family. We listen to music, we make jokes, we laugh together. My grandkids jump all over. That's what I love.
Music.
They should have a bunch of like genuine friends who they can just go out and be real with. I think half the stress I see is when they're trying to keep up an image that isn't real, and so they have to look good and they have to post something on social media every single day, even if they're having and they don't feel good. They feel this pressure to make it look like they do, so it's double the pressure. So I think, yeah, just have a space, have spaces and people who you can be absolutely genuine and real with, even if that means like crawling under a cover and just saying I want to hide, because yeah.
I play video games and I play basketball and I play golf.
I like to take drives. I love the golf course, walking, not necessarily playing. But yeah, walking in Karura, that's awesome. And then playing with the children, that helps all the time. And watching movies. I guess I do a lot of decompressing. Yeah.
As leaders, as captains of industry, you're faced with a myriad of issues. And some of the questions that we asked were linked directly to their personal and social lives, but this question was specific to what they feel is their biggest pet peeve at work, and what are some of the things that get their blood boiling in the workplace and in their careers in general. For me, as an entrepreneur and as a leader, one of the things that I really don't like is being problem-focused rather than solution-oriented. If you come to me with a problem and that's all you're bringing to me is a problem without bringing a solution on board, then it's the same thing as, making it a collective issue and expecting us to fix the problem, as opposed to you showing the initiative and going a step ahead and actually looking for ways to sort it out. I don't mind that things happen. Yes, it's work. Life happens, things happen, but be solution-oriented. Here's what some of our leaders had to say in terms of what really got them ticked off in the workplace.
Ooh, pet peeve at work is, I only get to pick one? Okay, because I have many. So one is not saying what you think. Just say what you think. If you don't think something's working, say it. Or if you think somebody's dropping the ball, just tell them, I think you need some help. Do you need some help? So that's one. Another one would be not doing what you say you're going to do. So yeah, you make a commitment, either keep it or let people know that you're not going to keep it.
My biggest pet peeve, wasting time.
Lack of gratitude. Just someone who's not courteous, just does not say thank you, does not say please, and just seems rude and not grateful. And in life, for me, if somebody's not grateful, doesn't have a grateful heart, then it's annoying.
Not getting the result I wanted, and then dealing with the people and resources to then make that happen.
Spellings must be correct. Emails must be done properly. I think I'm a stickler for order.
When they get dishonesty, when somebody is dishonest, I really hate that. I hate that. I try to imagine after all I've done, after all we have done, after all that we have in store for them, and they can dare do this. Yeah.